Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us today is Michael Looney. He is the new Vice President of Marketing for the Chamber of Commerce. Michael, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me out. It's good to be with you.
Now, as I mentioned, you joined the Chamber in the summertime as
Correct.
its new Vice President for Marketing. Tell us, for folks who don't know you, a little bit about your background.
Sure. I graduated from University of Texas in 1994 and ended up staying, originally from Houston, ended up staying in Austin, and within a couple of months after graduating got into the commercial real estate brokerage business. So I got licensed and joined a company that did commercial real estate development and tenant representation, buyer representation, and enjoyed it tremendously. Did well and had a great run and did that for approximately 16 years. And then after that, morphed out of that, that was kind of an asset management type brokerage position, and spent 3 years working in the middle of downtown Austin on the east side in an area that has experienced a lot of growth the past couple of years. The east side of Austin was kind of the forgotten side of Austin. And it had a lot of older, very old buildings, old warehouses and the like. And so my partner and I worked on what you could effectively call adaptive reuse, where we would take these older structures and convert them into things that they weren't necessarily designed to be. Music studios, office spaces, community centers, farmers markets, things like that. And so that was my last gig in Austin, was working on a series of developments similar to that. And once they were finished off, I was looking for another challenge.
So what about San Angelo and about the position that you now hold did you find attractive?
Sure. Well, I've always loved San Angelo. I've been coming here since 1999 when I met my wife, who's from San Angelo. And so we would come up here very frequently to hang out with friends and shop and experience the city. And we really always enjoyed the kind of the progressive feel of the city. There's a very vibrant arts community, which is really attractive to us. We like the diversity, and we just like the people. And we noticed that everywhere we went, whenever we would go out, the people were just very generous, very gregarious, very friendly. And so, little lessons like that stick in your mind, and you don't forget them very easily. It's kind of like the old saying, people will always forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so I always felt great welcoming, which is probably why I married a girl from San Angelo. When I was up here, we still hadn't moved from Austin. I met with the folks at the Chamber and with Phil Neighbors, the president of the Chamber, and they encouraged me to take a good hard look at the position, and felt that I could add value and an enthusiasm, and applied and went through a fairly rigorous interview process. 22 candidates were also involved in the process, and so ended up getting it, and was extremely thrilled and very grateful to be given the responsibility of this position.
So tell us what the Vice President of Marketing for the Chamber does and how you go about doing that.
Sure. What it is basically you're the face of the Chamber to the outside world. Chambers of Commerce, and that's not to say that I'm the only person at the Chamber that reaches outside of the community. That's not correct. But what I do is I'm tasked with going outside the community and seeking out opportunities for companies, employers to come to the city. And you do that through a variety of different ways. There's website experience, and we're in the process of revamping our website completely so that it provides a more informative and engaging experience online, but also site visits outside of town, going out into the region, and sometimes outside of the region into other states. And then also we're a part of a lot of different organizations. One, for example, is the Texas Midwest Community Network, which is a network of 26 regional counties with the focus on attracting companies that are in those areas or even outside of those areas, and just showing them what we've got, showing them what we're all about, showing them how we can help their business, and that we've got the workforce, we've got the facilities, and most importantly, we've got the high quality of life that a lot of employees enjoy, because most of them have families and they want to be in a very friendly, family-friendly city.
Now, as part of San Angelo's economic development team, you work very closely with the City of San Angelo Development Corporation,
Sure.
which administers the half-cent sales tax for economic development. Talk about how your role compares to the role of the COSA DC.
Well, it's similar in a lot of respects. In fact, so much so that there was an initiative that was requested by City Council a couple of years ago, maybe less than 2 years ago, where they really implored the marketing and recruitment person with the chamber to office, to not just work with COSA DC, but to actually office with them, which is what I do. Approximately half the week I office with Roland Pena and Bob Schneeman and Nora Regina and their staff, and that makes working together a lot easier, because there is a lot of overlap. A lot of what we do is very similar. Now, what COSA DC's probably more main function is to focus on primary job creators, primary employers, and those are based on what's called a NAICS code, and there are approximately I believe it's 16 NAICS codes that can be these are industries that can be supported by half-cent sales tax. Well, we on the other side of it, the chamber, we're not necessarily bound by that regulation, and so we will reach out not just to primary employers but also to retailers and to companies that are outside of the extreme focus of half-cent sales tax eligible companies. And so by combining those two, there's going to be some overlap, but we can reach into a different tranche of potential employers and service providers than COSA DC's mission dictates.
You've been here about half a year now. How quickly were you able, or are you able, to get out and begin selling San Angelo, given that you need a little bit of time to familiarize yourself both with the community and
Sure.
the economic development process?
Sure. It actually it happened within the first hour. We had a visitor come to the center, which is one of the reasons why we do like to spend time at the visitor center, because it is just such an attractive centerpiece of the city. And this was a developer from out of town who'd had his eye on a number of buildings, the older downtown buildings, some of the older tall buildings, and we put them together immediately with COSA DC, and very rapidly I had to learn that morning whom to call at the city at planning to create a guide map for them to follow. And the property is actually under contract now, which is kind of a nice thing. So yeah, it started immediately, Anthony. I mean, we hit the ground running. Some would say sprinting, just because there's so much opportunity. And it's really exciting. This is a really fun city. In fact, I get calls all the time from friends in Houston and Austin saying, well, you know, we really feel like we need to come up and see this city that you just talk about constantly and you love so much. And yeah, it's just I think that high quality of life in this contained, very stable city makes it very attractive. And we've had other developers who've come at us within subsequent weeks after my first hourly outreach that I had, and those transactions are actually progressing quite well.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about that. What are the advantages that San Angelo possesses that you think are attractive to prospective businesses?
Sure, there are many. One of them is just its geographic location, and that's always the primary. Workforce and geography are the two main things that site selectors or developers look for. Incentives, quality of life, amenities, things like that are important, but they're secondary. Primarily, you're going to go for the basics. And so strategically, you look at it, we're kind of the center of the triangle between San Antonio, Austin, Midland, Odessa, and going out towards the lower southwest portion of the Klein Shale, which is obviously a hotbed of development and activity. The size of the city, I think, really matters too. We're one of the largest cities in the United States without an interstate cutting through the city or running along the side of its flank, which may seem like a hindrance, but I think in a lot of ways it stems unbridled flowage of traffic and maybe elements that you don't want to see in a city. And you look at cities that are on the I-45 corridor and I-35 corridor, and that just plows right through the middle of the city, and it brings as many problems as it does solutions and prosperity. So I think just geographically, the size of the city and the fact that it's not attached to a much larger metropolis gives it the ability to kind of control its own destiny. And so I think a lot of your developers and company heads, they find that very attractive because you can understand the limitations of the market, but you can very quickly assess the strengths of the market too, because it's sort of just all sitting there just in one place.
We've got about a minute left before we have to go to the break. Talk a little bit about how attractive you found that businesses find San Angelo.
Sure. One of the things that they first go for is they really, a lot of the companies that we've been talking to have some familiarity with San Angelo, or they've heard of it. And they understand that we've got a really progressive university. We've got a very stable relationship with an Intel base, that'd be Goodfellow, and a very diversified economy. As I said, as we chatted a little bit before the interview, either by design or by accident, and it almost doesn't really matter, San Angelo has a very diversified economy, which is a great strength. That's a great asset. And a lot of the employers that we're talking to really appreciate the culture of the city, the quality of life, the friendliness of the people, and just the availability of workforce, very intelligent people who are ready to go to work.
We're talking with Michael Looney. He is the Vice President of Marketing for the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. And we'll be back continuing this conversation in just a moment. But first, we're going to spotlight another outstanding city employee, Daniela Curl, who works in our Geographic Information Systems division.
My name is Daniela Curl. I am a GIS analyst, and I've worked for the city for about a year and a half. Most people, when I first explain of my job, they say, oh, it's mapping. But it's actually a lot more than that, because there's a lot of different things that tie into it that people don't see. There's the asset management, there's the server side of things. So it's really like a marriage of a lot of different things, but in the end it produces a map. I primarily focus on adding assets to the map. I spent about half my time working on stormwater because that's a huge part of what we do. But I also am involved in several other projects, such as the sign maintenance map and a lot of like smaller assets, but it all contributes to the big picture. I really like the development side of things. I'd actually never even heard of GIS until I saw the position title, but it's a lot of database work, a lot of database management, which ties into computer science. So like that's what really intrigued me, is like you work with like millions and millions of bits of data, and it's a lot to keep track of, but it's a really nice challenge, and I like that side of things. I think just how much information we get to work with, and I guess that also kind of ties into the challenging side of things, is because we really need to figure out, you know, we're given this, you know, hey, we want to see this on the map, and then we need to figure out, like, okay, well, how do we make this work? What was the best way to represent this data? How do we add it in? What information should be there that we can then later use for future analysis? And so I think that part's really interesting. We always try to ensure that everything we put on the map, that everything is correct and usable, and you know, that we don't get like a lot of complaints or saying, you know, hey, this isn't where it's supposed to be, or this is missing. You know, we want to get everything out there right the first time. So I think that's how we measure success. There's a lot of work that goes into it before you even get to the paper map side of things that people don't see. You know, they just see a a footprint or an address or a street on the map and, just think it came there. But I mean, first we have to work with these people to get that information, to put it in accurately, and that it takes a lot of work before it gets to that point. And then in the end result is a really nice map, but it's work beforehand before it gets to that. I used to have my own photography business, but between work and that, it was a little bit too much, so I closed that. So I still shoot portraits and landscape, but now it's just for fun. Just about everything, science fiction, nonfiction. I don't think I've really met too many books that I didn't like. So a good day away from work would just be a relaxing day at home, reading, maybe going out to dinner, something like that. When my desk is full of things that I need to get done, I love being challenged. I love having an overwhelming workload. When there's a lot to do and there's a time pressure and we just need to get stuff out there, that's a good day because it just goes by so quick.
Welcome back to the City. We are continuing our conversation with Michael Looney. He is the new Vice President of Marketing for the Chamber of Commerce. From an economic development standpoint, Michael, what are the challenges that San Angelo faces and how do you go about addressing those?
Sure. Probably the biggest challenge that we face is workforce availability for specific industries. One of the blessings that we've received in the past number of years is the increase of activity in the Klein Shale Permian Basin area, which has pulled a lot of people who otherwise might take an IT job or a service sector job in San Angelo, just taking them out into the oil fields. Those are certainly challenges that are somewhat difficult to overcome. Although we work very, very closely with our partners at Contra Valley Workforce Solutions and also Texas Workforce. That'd be Mike Buck and Kathy Ballard, and also work very closely with Howard College on creating training initiatives that can put people into the market who may not have ever thought about going into a certain sector, but Howard College does an excellent job and so does ASU, I should add, of training youngsters and people who want to change their careers. And so I think working really closely with them has really added a lot of horsepower to our efforts. I don't know that we could do it without them. So that's probably the one main thing is just workforce, which is kind of we're sort of victims of our own success, you could say, with that regard. We don't have, I think the latest figures we looked at we're at about just slightly under 4% unemployment in the city. Which is outstanding. It's a good problem to have, but it's, as you noted, it's still a problem.
Is there a specific industry or type of job that you're targeting when you're going out trying to prospect for businesses?
There are a number of them, and one of the things that I determined very quickly in taking this position is to continue to encourage the diversity of the economy. And so we're going after companies that are manufacturing heavy equipment. We've got a couple of companies that we're discussing site selection with at this time. We've got several companies that are in the solar and wind generation business that we're outreaching to kind of parlay not just our great vesting that we have in the hydrocarbon industry, but also in alternative energy sectors and renewables. And then also one of the sectors that we're really aggressively looking at is the IT sector, where you have information technology, website creation, social media hosting, and the like, which has been a real driver, not just in Silicon Valley, obviously, for the past 60 years, but also in Austin, Texas, where you have very low impact companies that would be companies that aren't what you'd call smokestack industries, but they are extremely entrepreneurial, very productive, and extremely profitable. And my vision is that downtown San Angelo can be a hotbed of activity, a quality of life downtown that's very attractive to that demographic, that genre of people who power that industry.
What do you make of the argument that a flourishing oil field reduces the need to have an aggressive economic development effort by a community?
Sure, that's what you're referencing is sort of the old adage: the rising tide floats all ships, no matter how seaworthy they may be. In my experience, being in the brokerage business, you learn the hard way very quickly that you're only as good as your last transaction, and that's what we used to say at our firm. So you never stop aggressively attacking and going after companies and employers that you may need to set the stage with 3 years before anything actually happens. And that's probably one of the somewhat frustrating things about economic development, is that a lot of the transactions, agreements, relationships that ultimately provide jobs may take 3 years, maybe longer, to foster. Just because generally companies are like very large ships in that rising tide. They turn very slowly. But I think the flourishing oil field is something that historically Americans, and especially Texans, have learned to be wary of. And it's something you probably maybe even heard or saw when the Klein Shale was starting to make a noticeable impact on our economy. You had a lot of men and women who were deeply involved in the boom of the late 70s and early 80s who expressed, and very wisely expressed, some reservation that this could be a repeat of that, where people were greatly economically boosted by that event, only to have it cut out from under them within a period of months. And so one of the things that we're doing in our division, along with Costa DC, is making sure that we don't just focus on the flourishing hydrocarbon industry, but we don't think that industry is in any danger of a heavy shutdown. A lot of the companies that we've talked to have reassured us of the fact that they're here for the long term.
And that being the case, then, how much opportunity does the oil field create for spin-off businesses?
Sure, a tremendous amount. One of the things that's always tempting is that when you have an industry, being the oil industry, that is added so much to our community in the past 36 to 48 months, you will have a lot of your offshoot. You'll have a lot of your higher-end retail, a lot of your more well-known national restaurant chains and high-end clothiers. They all start wanting to come in. Now, those are not necessarily primary job creators, but they still add to the tax base, and they provide fantastic diversity of products to our citizenry who have the means to enjoy those fruits.
So you are essentially selling San Angelo, and I'm curious how you think selling a community is different, or maybe alike, selling a product such as guns or widgets or butter or whatever analogy you might want to make.
One of the harder things, as I'd said before, about selling a city is that it takes a long time. When you sell a widget, whether that's guns and butter or oil or gasoline, you pretty much can sell that one product very quickly to a willing buyer. With a city, you have a lot more work to do because you've got so many different advantages and aspects of the city that you need to explain. In fact, yesterday we had a firm that came from out of state that spent the day with us, and it took all day to explain to them just the incredibly diverse spectrum of advantages that San Angelo has.
So when you think about a win situation from an economic development standpoint, what are the circumstances that create that win situation? How do you know when you've had a victory?
You're going to know it when obviously the ink is dry and the dirt is turning, and you've got a company that's coming into the city that's going to provide good paying jobs to a willing workforce. And that has happened on many occasions before my time, of which I've learned about historically, and we've got several initiatives going on right now and discussions we're having with primary employers that would do just that. It's a little frustrating at times because you want to tell more than you should, and clearly we're going to maintain a strict level of confidentiality. But seeing the wonderful part of the victory is seeing a company that didn't know about San Angelo or didn't know about what San Angelo could offer come to the city. They're looking at other cities, of course. Site selectors are going to be very particular, and seeing them see that kind of sparkle in their eye once they start to get it under their skin that they really like this community. They see the benefits. They see the other examples of companies that took a chance on San Angelo and are very, very glad that they did. And so that's when you know it, and that's when you see it.
You know, one of the things that a lot of people may not understand about economic development is it's not a venture that is without risk, and there's always some risk involved.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that and how expectations at times have to be tempered with that reality.
They do. One of the risky parts of economic development is that more often than not we're dealing with companies either representing themselves or going through an agent or a site selector. And you're not the only game in town. They're looking at other cities. Generally what they'll do is they'll look for geography and they'll look for workforce and infrastructure availability. We've had these instances where we're at San Angelo not necessarily competing with Midland or Abilene. We're competing with Tulsa and Little Rock. And other cities that are of similar size. And so, you know, you obviously are challenged because if a company finds that a location in Little Rock is just plain better, there's really very little that you can do if geographically that's just where they need to be. But the challenge is always trying to figure out how we can parlay all of our assets without over incentivizing or even really participating in really great, huge incentives for companies, because we want to sell the attributes of the city and the region first. Incentives are a part of the process, as they are in any negotiations, whether you're buying a car or a house or bringing a 300-person company to the city. But it's only a small part of it, and it's certainly not something that is brought out in the early stages. That's usually something that is discussed in a meaningful way towards the end of the transaction.
We've been talking with Michael Looney. He is the Vice President of Marketing for the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode of The City.